What if I told you that you could make six figures from a single property flip without using any of your own money? Well, that's exactly what Ant and his partner have done. And in this video, he's going to be sharing the exact steps he took to make this happen. So let's dive in. Hello everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm here today, my name is Michelle Cairns, and I'm here today with Ant Lyons, co-founder of Your Property Network, also known as YPN. And today we're going to be talking about how you can make £100,000 from one property deal. And I know this is an exciting topic for many of you, and you might be thinking that it's not possible, or how could this be possible? So we're going to dive into it today. We've got lots to talk about, and specifically we're going to be looking at how to de-risk a deal like this. And we're going to look at how you can even do something like this with none of your own money. There's lots of different ways to get £100,000 from one property deal. But today we're going to look at one particular deal, one particular case study in more details. And we're going to dive into it and look at how Ant got into the deal, how he was able to negotiate and structure the deal, and what it looked like. Okay, so from start to finish, soup to nuts, let's have a look at this deal. So Ant, tell us, let's start from the beginning. Okay, so
so let's start from the beginning and do some credit where it's due, definitely, because I'm no property genius. I'm definitely not. I'm a very ordinary guy, and I'm very fortunate to have a partner that I work with in property. She's utterly amazing. She's a true engine. Chrissy, she might be watching this, so she's the kind of brains and beauty of the outfit. I'm not really sure where I fit in, but so she found this deal, found this project, and shall I just explain what it is to start with? That's probably a good place to start, and then we're going to talk through how we de-risked the deal, how we kind of structured the finance on it, how we managed the project, how we assessed it in the first place, and then how we delivered it in a relatively short time frame. And that time frame is really important, because this is not my biggest deal, it's not my most profitable deal. I've been in bigger projects which took way longer, but carried more inherent risk. So this is a really important one, I think, to talk about, because it's actually my first one that I did to develop to sell, with the explicit plan of developing to sell. So it's kind of my transition from landlord, of buying properties, refurbing them, refinancing and letting them out, to actually developing this thing with the purpose of selling it. So okay, so this is down in Plymouth, where I've got a number of properties, and it was kind of an end terrace building that had been years ago had been converted into four 1-bedroom flats, and I think it was owned formerly by I think it was a charity or a housing association. I think it was a charity who housing association. It was definitely a housing association, and it was pretty unloved. You and many people watching this will have walked into similar properties. It was nobody was aspiring to live in there at the time. For pretty grotty 1-bedroom flats in a decent location. It wasn't, it's not the kind of King's Road, it's not that kind of thing, but a nice place to live. Lots of investment properties locally, lots of student properties in the area. If anybody knows Plymouth at all, it was in Mutley, which is, Studentville, and it's where I was a student and lived many years ago, 30 years ago. Blimey, that feels painful to say that. So it's 4 1-bedroom flats, bit tired, Victorian, end of terrace building, bit of a lump of a building, really. And it was my partner Chrissy found it through a commercial agent. So it wasn't on with your high street estate agents. They weren't listing it. It was something of an anomaly, really, because it wasn't really a commercial building. The company, the organisation that was selling it, had a good relationship with this commercial agent, and so they listed it with them. But commercial agents can be a little bit old-fashioned, and so this property hadn't made it onto Rightmove. It hadn't been listed anywhere. We knew the commercial agent, so when it came up, we were on a relatively short list of people that they spoke to, and I really liked that. So we weren't competing against everybody who watches Homes Under the Hammer, and is surfing Rightmove and that kind of thing. It just wasn't listed on there. And it's important for a lot of reasons, this project, and not least of which I think is because we paid the full asking price for it. I think you might agree with this, Michelle. We can get really obsessed with BMV, buying below market value and negotiating on the asking price and buying it as cheap as we can. And sometimes it's buying it as cheap as we can and at a price that makes sense for the deal is paying the full asking price. We couldn't have got it for any less.
An opportunity, right? So in this case, you spotted an opportunity. It didn't need to be below the market value. You could see how you could add additional value to it by developing it out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, don't get me wrong, if I could have bought it for 20 or 30,000 pounds less, we definitely would have done that. But that was never going to happen. And I've done quite a few deals really that are paying full asking price, and it's just about seeing the potential in it. And I flatter myself, and not Chrissy because she's amazing, that we had experience in this type of project before, because we'd done bought a number of 1-bedroom flats where we had converted them to 2-bedroom flats. And it's pretty straightforward, really. And people always ask, how do you change a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom? Well, these were, if you can picture it, kind of Victorian flats with quite large living spaces in that. And so essentially what we did is we took what was the kitchen, what had previously been the kitchen in each of these flats, and then stripped that out. That became a 2nd bedroom. And then in that large living area, we moved the kitchen in there. So it became kind of, lounge, diner, kitchen area, kind of open plan living. And it's that weird thing that here...
When you were looking at the project at the beginning, did you just look at the floor plan and think, okay, this is exactly what we're looking for, we can see how we can add value? Or was it a case of, it was a great deal as it was, and then afterwards, when you were looking at, how to refurbish it, you thought, actually, there's something we can do here?
No, we pretty much looked at that from, day one, from walking in there and looking at a floor plan. The price difference in the area here between a sort of 1-bed and a 2-bed is probably 20,000-30,000 pounds, something like that. And so as 1-bedroom flats as well, they don't sell as well. Certainly not to a first-time buyer or someone who's kind of downsizing or whatever it is, or even as an investment, really. 2-bedrooms sell better and are worth another 20,000-30,000 pounds, whatever it might be. And so if these had just been 1-bedroom flats, the deal wouldn't have worked. There wouldn't have been the profit in it. So we had to very quickly say, hey, can we make more of these units than they currently are? And it was pretty grotty. I mean, some people watching this might have been to these types of properties before, where there were needles outside. Michelle, you've been to those kind of places. They're less than glamorous, and can be a little bit intimidating. But we could see past that and see that actually in the road and in the area, there's some nice places to live. We had bought similar properties, albeit, maybe one flat at a time, or on occasion, kind of 2 flats upstairs and downstairs. So we knew the values in the area. So we knew with, I would say, a high degree of confidence that the end value of these things, if they were presented nicely, would be between 110 and 120,000 pounds. So, not really expensive. Some people are watching this, maybe based in London, and go, hey, what's that? That's not even a parking space. But those are the values in our area. And we had a vision, I guess, of these were never going to be the best flats for sale in Plymouth or in the Southwest. But can we make them the nicest in our price bracket? Can we make them, for people who are looking in that kind of price bracket, can we make ours the most attractive? So should we jump into the numbers? Should we do that? Okay, so we paid, it was advertised, and we paid £260,000 for the building. So that was the entire freehold of the building, with obviously the 4 flats in it. It was on one title at the time. And there's a couple of important things that we did to force the appreciation of the asset, because that's our job as property investors or developers. That's what we're trying to do, is to try and take what we bought and force the value of it through a variety of mechanisms, one of which is the refurb. So So we paid £260,000 for the building, and the works, the cost of the physical works on it were £80,000. I'm giving kind of slightly rounded numbers here for ease of understanding. So it was about £20,000 per flat, which was a little more than we would normally spend on buying one flat and, let's say, turning that into a two-bed. At the time we were probably spending maybe £15,000 on a flat to do that kind of work. This one cost a little bit more because there was a bit of external work to do. We painted the building outside. We created an additional, I think, couple of parking spaces outside. So there was a little bit more work to do.
But there was no structural work involved in terms of taking down walls or anything like that?
Yeah, thankfully not. I've been involved in those projects, and those are definitely entering the kind of arena of the unknown. It's almost impossible to cost out those types of projects. So this was one of my favourite deals, and definitely one of my favourite deals to talk about because of the kind of speed and certainty of it. We knew pretty close to what this thing was going to cost us to do, and we had a really good idea of what the end values were going to be once we finished the project. And perhaps most importantly, and for anybody who's taking their first development project on, I think this is really important, we had multiple exit strategies. So if anything had happened in the sales market here, we knew that we could have refinanced, got all of our money back out, or not our money, but paid off our finance on it, had a sort of no money left in deal, and a property with equity, or 4 properties in this case with equity in them, that were making a good solid rental profit. But we didn't want to do that. The purpose of this was to sell it. I had the money for another, wanted to make the money, needed to make the money for another project I was doing, and thankfully that really paid off. So I think there's some other things in here though. So we £260,000 for the purchase of the building, £80,000 on the build. We financed it using a combination of bridging finance and private investor finance, and the two of those things were relatively expensive to do. And when I was looking at the numbers in detail earlier on, the other costs, so people never factor in the other costs when they're doing the initial appraisal. So the other costs, they would include the cost of finance to the bridging company, cost of finance to our private investors, the legal fees to buy it, the legal fees for the loans to the private investors, the bridging finance fees, kind of entry and exit fees, the cost of staging it, because we staged one of the flats as well. We bought the furniture, or in this case hired the furniture to put in there to make it look really, really nice. And all of those costs came to £54,000. And I think that's the point at which some people come unstuck, because they don't factor in just how big these additional costs can be. So that's the first word of warning, always do your sums and really work out what those costs are going to be. We had 4 sets of estate agents fees to pay when we sold it, and those costs really, really add up. So when it came to selling the property, I think I said, didn't I, that we thought these things are going to be worth between 110 and 120,000, and the average sale price across them was £116,000. So we were pretty close. We were pretty close. I mean, I think at times we were optimistic. Maybe it'll be 125 or whatever, and it's really easy to do that. We've probably all done that on a deal. So, so we've got 4 sets of £116,000 coming in, and then we had a little bonus as well, actually, because and this is more challenging to do in today's market, but we actually sold the freehold of the building as well. So that, as well as selling 4 leasehold flats, we sold the freehold of the building for an additional £36,000. Now, that market has changed. That would probably be difficult to replicate, certainly that kind of number today. So that gave us a total sales figure of £500,000. So that's everything wrapped up. The 4 individual flats, the sale of the freehold, we brought in £500,000, and our total costs, so the purchase price, those horrible other costs that I talked about, and the build cost came to £394,000. So this made £106,000 profit on this. I say one deal. It's one deal, albeit 4 properties. Obviously, within that, we had legal fees because we had to split the title of the building. if people are not familiar with that, we had the freehold of the building, which we had to own in a company, and then issue the leases separately, create 4 separate leasehold flats. So we had those legal fees as well, and then sell the flats off individually and sell the freehold in this instance. And the bit I love about this deal, well, one of the things I love about this deal was the speed of it. So we were in and out of this project from the day we picked the keys up to the day that we handed the keys over on the very last flat or the freehold, was 7.5 months. So that's a quick project. Have you got any questions at this stage, or shall I just keep talking?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you how long you're going to. I wanted to just clarify the bridging finance for people who aren't sure, because I think a lot of people just assume that they would get a mortgage on something like this. So can you explain what the difference is between a mortgage and bridging finance, how this works, and why you would need bridging finance for a development?
Sure, I will do my best. I'll do my best to do so. So a mortgage is a kind of long-term product. You're holding that product for X number of years, whatever it might be. They're not designed for trading property. In fact, this would be a really, really difficult property to get a mortgage on in the first place, probably, or certainly a bit more challenging. And if you use mortgages and to do this, then it's not going to take very long for you to get kind of blacklisted by lenders, and they're not going to want to lend to you. They're lending you money on a 5 or 10 year basis or whatever it might be. Bridging finance is a completely different beast, in that normally a mortgage lender will want your money to be in it as well. They'll want your skin in the game. Bridging finance is a lot more flexible in that they're lending on the asset. They don't really care quite so much about where the other funds come from, because if you can't pay it, they're taking the asset back. That's what is going to happen. So it's more expensive than a mortgage, but I wouldn't use the term "it's expensive" because it's relevant, isn't it? It's all relative, rather, to the deal. Now, I couldn't have done this deal without it. I definitely didn't have whatever it is I needed, £390,000 worth of cash in the bank to do the deal at the time. Most people don't. Some people do. Most people don't. But I don't believe that should prohibit anybody from doing these types of deals. Making money from property shouldn't be shouldn't only be the prevail of the already wealthy. The rest of us should be able to get into those deals. So bridging finance, short-term finance. I think we were paying about 1% per month on the money, whereas a mortgage might be, let's say, 5% a year. And you've got entry fees and exit fees. So comparatively, it's a lot more expensive. It's a lot more flexible, and it is designed for these types of deals. And you definitely need a great bridging finance provider or a broker or somebody who can finance these types of deals. Don't use a mortgage.
No. So you use the bridging finance, typically is around 60-70% that they'll lend on development projects. So you mentioned about having other private finance that you work with to bring somebody else into the deal. So you actually use none of your own money. I guess some people might be thinking, well, how do you find somebody to just put in the extra money? What do they get out of it?
Yeah, I think I'm in a fortunate position. I'm quite well connected in the sort of property world, but actually these were friends and connections of my amazing partner Chrissy, who they'd had some property experience before. They had kind of money in the bank, maybe from selling a business or wherever it came from, that they wanted to put to work, and they wanted to invest in a project that they believed in. This was a relatively straightforward deal in that they could see it was a kind of in and out deal. It wasn't a long-term relationship with us. We weren't buying property together for the next 10 years. They were lending money into a project. They could see the numbers. They could come and see the building. And I'm a real advocate of doing that, actually. Let's come in, have a look at the building. Let's look at some other properties we've done, or let's look at other properties in the street. So you can buy into this as much as I am. Hey, this is your money. You've got belief in the project and believe in me. And I think it's a bit glib to say, if the deal's good enough, you'll find the money. But there's an element of truth in it, particularly if you are going out there and presenting yourself to people and, showcasing just what's possible. People want to be in property, and sometimes they don't want to do it themselves.
Yeah, Yeah, it's good. It's great to, and you said there about being fortunate, already having connections, but it's possible for everybody to build connections with people in their network who might have some funds that are just sitting in the bank and they want their money to work harder for them. So it's great to be able to build those connections and those relationships before you need them in terms of getting another deal and being able to have a few people who you can go to and say, I've got an opportunity, would you like to be involved? So that's really
And
important.
I know some people will often say, well, I don't know anybody with that kind of money, and the truth is, you probably do, but you don't necessarily know that. And if you don't know anybody with those kind of funds, if you don't have anybody of that type in your network, change your network. You're in the wrong network. You need to know other people, and that's it's that old adage, isn't it? We're the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with, and it is. I'm a real believer that is 100% true. That doesn't mean ditch your friends and family and never speak to them again. I think some people take it a little bit too literally, but start making connections with people that will be able to help you move forward.
Agreed. Okay, so let's just go back to, you said you were in and out of the deal in around 7 or 8 months. Did you have the builders all set up ready to go and, on day one, keys, there you go, straight in there? Or how did that work with getting contractors in and for them to understand what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, because having builders that you have a great working relationship with, and I've had projects where that has not been the case. It's really important, particularly on a project of this size. And so this was a team of builders that Chrissy had worked with before. They were in and out of the building kind of during the conveyancing process. So they knew what we were going to do to the building, what the plans were of the building before we completed on the purchase of it. And that probably gave us additional time. I can't remember how long it took us to buy this thing. It was probably, oh, well, you know what it's like buying property in the UK. It takes forever. So it's probably at least 3 months, I would have thought. So, we could get them in there, double check that there wasn't anything that, looked untoward or any nasty surprises or whatever. Didn't need a whole new roof or anything like that. We could get them to check it out beforehand. And one of the reasons this is one of my favorite deals is actually we had a great working relationship with the builders. They were really nice guys, and it was kind of relatively informal. I've been involved in bigger projects where it's really contractual, the build side of things, and I've been in development deals that have been the best part of 3 years. And in those meetings, I've been kind of sat there with their QS, our project manager, our architect, feeling really out of my depth, and also just watching the kind of budget spiral out and out of control. So this wasn't that. This was the relatively straightforward refurb of 4 existing 1-bedroom flats, just changing them to 2-bedroom flats. So as you said earlier on, didn't need any structural work, no horrible unknowns in there. The kind of legal process of splitting the title was relatively straightforward. They had their own meters. They had been, operating as individual flats for a number of years. Definitely a lot more straightforward than buying like a house or a commercial building and then splitting into flats in terms of planning permission side of things. Didn't need planning permission, just needed to split the title through land registry. So it was a relatively straightforward one. Nice guys working on it. We could stand in there and sort of, I would probably be on site once a week, travel down to Plymouth. I'm about an hour and a half, 2 hours away, travel down, spend some time with the builders, meet Chrissy, have some lunch, meet a couple of agents. We had a good agent that, we wanted to market the properties with, and he was brilliant. And he knew exactly, I think we had a good idea of who our buyers were going to be. But I don't know if we got it exactly right. I think 1 or 2 of them were bought by investors. One was a first-time buyer, and one was someone who was kind of downsizing or split up with a partner or something like that. So it was a bit of a mix. And actually, those 2-bedroom properties were at that price point. They were appealing to quite a fairly broad market. First-time buyers can get a foot in the door. Investors might want to buy it as well. It's in a good, solid letting area. And all those things were a big tick in the box, saying actually pretty confident we're going to move these things pretty quickly. I said that we staged one of the flats as well, so we hired the furniture. I think it was about £2,500 or something like that to get all of the furniture in. And then the person who bought that flat said, "I love the look of this, and can I have the furniture?" So we actually ended up, just adding on the cost of the furniture. We bought it off of the company we were renting it from, and she bought it from us, and she moved in as it was. So that was pretty cool as well. So the thing I love, the reason I love talking about this deal as well is it's a really easy one to communicate to an agent. So if this is the sort of thing you're looking for, you can go into a commercial agent or a high street estate agent and say, "Hey, I'm looking for blocks of flats. Hey, I'm looking for unloved, tired blocks of flats. If they're pretty smelly or unloved or whatever, that's me. Those are the ones I'm looking for." And I think if you compare that to how some people start off, where they might go into an agent and say, "Hey, I'm looking for deals," we've all been there. That's great. Let me just file your details in the bin. Which happens a little bit. Whereas I think you can be taken a bit more seriously if you go in saying, "This is the type of property I'm looking for. Anything from from 2 units, 2 flats to maybe 8 flats, something like that. These are the types of properties that I'm interested in. These are the types of areas that I'm looking at. Quite easy to assess the end values. When we've done bigger development projects, listed buildings and stuff like that, where you're creating much more unique dwellings, but there's not really anything to compare it to. Who's to say what the end value is then? Because there's nothing to compare it to. It's worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. Whereas here we can say, "Hey, you know what? There's within a quarter of a mile radius, there's been 30 or 40 flat sales in the last year at around about this kind of level." So you can get speed and certainty in this type of project.
Great. Well, let's wrap up with some top tips for people. So let's jump back to the builders. And you said that, in this particular case, you had a great relationship with builders already. For a lot of people getting into property, the working with builders is the one thing that really puts them off getting in, because I think they've heard all the horror stories. So give us one top tip about working with builders or contractors in getting a great deal done.
So it's a really important one, and one that gets overlooked. So work with someone that that even if you haven't worked with them before, someone has worked with them before. They've worked on a similar project or similar size and scope. Their experience was good. You can find out what were they like to deal with. Did they turn up on time? Was the site really messy? Were there any were there any costs that kind of came out that you weren't expecting? What was your relationship with them? And if you don't know where to meet those people, go to a property networking event or ask around. Like I know in my gym, we've probably got like 3 or 4 builders at my gym, and now they may not be. I might talk to one of them, and they might say, "Oh, well, that's not really what I do. I more new build or whatever it is, and I'm busy building extensions. But I know a guy, and he does this kind of work." Definitely, I don't know what would the equivalent of picking up the yellow pages be now, like Googling, builders in my area. I definitely wouldn't do that. You've got no idea who they are, what they do. So if you haven't worked with them before, make sure it's someone that, a fellow landlord, fellow investor, someone that and you kind of trust their judgment. Make sure that they've worked with them, so you're not going into a complete unknown.
Great. That's good tips for people. And it's these days, I guess it's WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups to find recommendations as well. So even if you don't have a network, it's easy now to just reach out to people in your area if you're already running maybe network meetings as well that you can go to in person and get connected with the right people.
And that's really important as well, because the bit I kind of haven't, I've sort of alluded to, but I haven't said it explicitly, is one of the most important elements of this deal is that I was working with, my partner Chrissy in this, and to work with someone that you love working with, you work together well, that under pressure they're not going to kind of like panic or fold or run away, which sometimes when things don't go well, it's all too tempting to feel like doing that. So to work with someone that you love working with and you can work together well is really important as well. And there's a massive amount of satisfaction from taking an unloved project, something where no one was living, it becomes something of a drug den, a bit of an eyesore, bit of a problem in that community, and then representing it as actually 4 really nice places to live. They and as I said earlier on, in that price bracket, probably the nicest ones that you could buy in that kind of price bracket. Obviously the money's nice, and £100,000 is a life-changing sum of money for a huge number of people. A lot of people, £100,000 from one project, it would make a massive amount of difference. It would enable you to do other things. Maybe invest in other properties, or pay a massive lump off of your own mortgage, or buy your own place, or not work for a year, whatever it might be. It's an enormous sum of money, but there's also that intrinsic reward from doing a job well and bringing something back to life that had fallen into disrepair and become a problem.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a great partnership with Chrissy, your partner, as well, because she was bringing something to the table that you weren't bringing. You both had things to contribute, and she'd found the deal. So in some cases, it's better to get half of something rather than all of nothing, right? If you can both work on projects together, and you can both benefit from them, and then you can do more together.
Oh yeah, and definitely. And this deal kind of springboarded things for me. I said this was my first project to kind of develop to sell, and from this we went to Georgian. If you can picture a big sort of Georgian terrace, crescent. We bought 2 of those buildings. It was around about 10,000 square feet, grade 2 listed buildings that we converted to 10 flats, and that was a GDV of £2 million. And whilst that one was happening, another one came along, which was an 11,000 square foot grade 2 listed care home. And I definitely wasn't ready for those projects, but we brought other people into those deals that had experience of those types of projects. And I was definitely happy to kind of share the profits on them, to bring in the experience of people who had undertaken listed buildings conversions before, worked with architects, which, project managers, which I'd never really done before, raise those sums of money. On one of those bigger projects, we crowdfunded a lot of the funds needed, and in fact on 2 of them we did that, but on one of them we raised £1,050,000, and then watched the money come in over, it was about a 24-hour period, and it was definitely one of the most exciting things I've been involved in property, just to watch that happen. So from me, it went from doing those little 1-bed flats, changing them into 2 beds, spending £15,000 on a refurb, to then doing this kind of block of 4 of these, and then moving up that deal chain into kind of like really big deals. And they weren't my favorite deals. Definitely not the one I'm talking about today. Would definitely be my preferred one for speed, certainty, multiple exit strategies, and for all those reasons, it would definitely an easier way to make that 6-figure profit.
Well, for people who are thinking, okay, this sounds great, I love the idea of it, and I'd like to go out and find some of these myself. You mentioned about how people could it's an easy one to explain to agents, and you can go in and say, this is exactly what you're looking for. But in this particular case, what it seems like happened was it was mismarketed by the agent. So it normally would have been on Rightmove, on the other portals, for everybody to see, because it was a residential property, not a commercial. So what tips have you got for people who are looking for, great deals that are not really obvious on the market? It might be it's mismarketed in the wrong portal, or it might be it might have been described as a 4-bedroom house or something.
Yeah, that's a really good one. So obviously, in this instance, talk to the commercial agents, actually talk to agents. But if you are sat there on Rightmove, here's a tip, a genuine tip, because people don't know how to list these. There's not really a way to list this. So quite often these blocks of flats get listed as, it might be as a 4 or 5 or a 6-bedroom flat. I mean, they're not a 4 or 5 or 6-bedroom flat. They're 4 or 5 or 6 1-bedroom flats. But other than listing it as a commercial property on there, which doesn't normally happen, if it's listed by a high street agent, normally they don't quite know how to categorize this. So it gets listed as a 5-bedroom flat, which, that doesn't really exist. It would be a very rare thing anyway. And so when you start searching for these, you can see that, okay, well, in a £300,000 price bracket or whatever it might be in your area, okay, this is actually 5 flats on one title, not one 5-bedroom flat. So these things, as you say, they get listed wrong or communicated incorrectly. And I don't know whoever's job it is to list these onto Rightmove in an estate agent's, but then not doing it correctly necessarily, and that is to our advantage. I mean, right now, obviously, there are probably there's great opportunity, and there are definitely more sophisticated ways of doing that these days with pieces of software, stuff like Property Filter, which you and I would use all the time, to hone in on exactly these types of projects before they even hit the market sometimes. So, yeah, I like it. I like the kind of title split deal. I think it's not particularly complicated, and you can ask a few questions of a solicitor, and they'll kind of guide you in the right in the right direction of how to buy this thing. You don't necessarily want to buy it in your personal name. You can't buy it in your personal name and then issue the leases to yourself. So they'll give you that advice at the outset.
Okay. Well, I love this deal too. I think to summarize it, it's like buying a cake wholesale, putting some extra cream on top, and then cutting it up into 4 and selling it off 4 pieces for more than it's worth, as the original.
Yeah, and hey, that's a great analogy. And a friend of mine, and in fact, the broker that we used to sell the freehold used exactly that analogy. But then he also said, as well as selling these 4 different slices of cake, you're also selling the box it came in, because you're selling the freehold of the building. So, yeah, it's the perfect analogy, and it's the one that he used all the time. He was talking about this with us. So, I mean, hey, obviously this is just one way to make £100,000 in from one property deal, and there's loads of ways of doing it. There's lots of ways of doing it using none of your own money, which we'll cover in other of these other videos. But for me, it was an easy step from buy-to-let landlord to developer, and flipping a property for profit.
Yeah, it seems like one that a lot of people can relate to, especially when it involves working with other people's money as well, for people who are just starting out. So not only is the deal itself quite simple to get your head around, but also knowing that you can bring other people's money in on these particular type of deals when, let's say, it's just a 3-bed terraced house, you wouldn't be able to bring other people's money in the same way, because this is a development and the other one is more of a simple investment. So I think that's an important distinction to make as well. But there's, as you said, so many ways of making money from property. This is just one example. And we cover lots of different case studies and different examples of people and how they and their deals and how they've made interesting amounts of money through property in Your Property Network magazine, through our Facebook site, through our podcast. We feature a lot of people on our training programs as well. So where can people find out more about how to find out more about these deals?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be links in the description on this video, which you can just click and go through to the YPN website, yourpropertynetwork.co.uk. There's lots of details there on how to get a free trial of membership, get access to the app, get the magazine, get invited to the webinars that we run every week, all that kind of stuff. And so that's the first place to stop, really. Go to yourpropertynetwork.co.uk or follow the links in the description here, and they'll navigate you there. And like and subscribe to the channel as well to get more of these videos.
Great. And who knows, guys, you might be featured in the magazine one of these days by finding out more about how to do these creative deals. We look forward to seeing you in another episode of these. Take care for now.
Thanks, Michelle. Bye.